allies, and anybody that wants to learn more about the LGBT plus community. My name is Zanardi, and I'm so glad all your beautiful faces are here. Welcome back to episode 2 of the Alphabet Mafia podcast. I want to start off by saying thank you all so much for the support. We officially launched the Alphabet Mafia brand this past weekend, and you guys have been nothing but amazing and supportive. It's been so great to seeing the inspiring effect it's had on people. You guys have flooded my inbox with positivity. Seeing that type of love going around is really what we're trying to do here. So I really appreciate your support. Thank you all so very much. Today's guest is named Dylan Ponzio. He identifies as a gay male. And our conversation was fantastic. Dylan is from a small town in Northern California. So we really talked about, growing up in a small town as an LGBT individual, the stigma around that, and small towns specifically. Dylan also touched on his rocky relationship with his mother and walked through what it's like having a mother who isn't so accepting of your sexuality. I will warn you that we did film this in a almost museum type room of a library. It was a large round room, so if there's a little bit of an echo, I sincerely apologize for that. We do not have a studio yet. We are just getting started, but this is the second episode, and so I appreciate you all being here from the beginning. Without further ado, here's Dylan. Welcome to the show, Dylan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's cool. It's a nice room. Cool, literally.
Right? A little room in a public library. Art room.
Very museum. Very artsy.
Museum vibes.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk a little bit about just, yourself, a little bit about your origin story. Where are you from?
Let's see. So I was born in Arizona, lived there till I was about 6, 7. I don't really remember it too much.
Sure.
But then we moved to San Jose for a bit. We lived there for a couple months, and then we moved down to Hollister, California. For anybody that's listening, tiny farm town, boring. But it's a good time, it's like a nice place to live. It's like pretty serene, pretty tranquil and all that.
Yeah.
And it was never, it's a good time.
Okay.
And then came down to San Diego for school, 2013, and been here since.
Nice. And what are you studying?
Cognitive science, kind of how the brain takes in different stimuli and decides to act and what not to do off of that.
Nice. Yeah. And do you have any, anything you're interested in going into, or dream job?
That's a good one. I think ultimately, a lot of years, a lot of studying and whatnot. I think I'd be somewhat interested in counseling or therapy of some sort. I've been told I'm a very patient and soothing person, so I would like to give that back. But who knows? That's maybe conceited. But something helpful to people would be ultimately what I'm looking for.
Awesome. I love that. So I guess let's just talk a little bit about your identity, your sexual identity. You identify as gay. Is that okay? Kind of just. You can start from the beginning, just kind of walk me through that journey of discovering yourself, leading up to the coming out and everything.
Okay, where to start? I guess the first time I was aware of being attracted to men was probably, I don't know how PG I was. Pulling the patch. I don't know how PG we're supposed to be. Sorry.
We're R.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Great. Yes. Okay. Not to be super vulgar, but I was going through the motions, discovering the body, all that. And as I was watching the material, it was what's happening on screen is doing it for me.
Yeah.
But I was specifically drawn towards the male parts, and was okay. But then at first I was wondering, we all go through, not we all, but a lot of us go through I'm not gay. It's just this or
the
that.
Denial stage, excuses.
Yeah, exactly. So I was I just think dudes are cool. I don't know. So I don't know.
What age was this?
We're
talking middle school.
Somewhere around there, I want to say 10ish, 11ish. I don't know. When people start discovering the body, but that's. Well, I had an older brother too, and he was hey, do you know how this works?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a little rushed or premature for you.
Well, that was around that age, and then slowly I started getting more and more into just solely man-on-man stuff. I would still engage in straight porn occasionally, but just wasn't really doing it for me.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then so have you ever had relations with a girl or kissed a girl?
I kissed a girl. Okay. Well, I've kissed many girls. I I somewhat enjoy making out with people, particularly when there's alcohol involved. You know, it's always fun, like,
Yeah,
let's
right,
all be
yeah.
friends and whatnot. But like in a serious fashion, I was like in a relationship in high school with a girl for like a month or so.
Yeah.
We like made out once, and then I think she knew and I knew, and it was just like, maybe not, maybe not.
Yeah.
And then that was the last and only foray I attempted.
Okay, gotcha. And when did you start the coming out process of start telling people that you were not straight?
That was probably good one. I want to say 19, like my first year at college. I guess like it definitely helps to be like removed away from these people, and it's like, oh, they don't know anything about me, so it's way easier.
Yeah.
But like I first voiced it to like one person on like a drunken night, sober words, drunk thoughts, and all that
Yeah.
good stuff. And then it was just like, oh wow, that wasn't anything at all. Like nothing's changed. It's just like, well, things have changed. Nothing like in the
Right.
immediate reality has changed. But like, you know, like just like it's just who I am. It's like whatever. And then after that, I was like slowly, I began telling like actual friends from home, began telling people that I like lived with, telling just like people I engage with regularly.
Sure.
And then after a while, it was just like not like I open up with hi, I'm no longer gay, but it's just like, I don't know, like I don't like try to hide it or whatnot.
Were you scared at all as you were telling these different people? What was the feeling that you were experiencing?
I wonder. I think at first there was definitely a lot of trepidation and a lot of like, you don't want to like give it life and give it power because we're all taught that it's not good to be gay. It's not like of course it's good, it's great, it's wonderful, but like society like tells us oftentimes like, oh, it's just not the right thing to do.
Sure.
So I was like scared at first, but I think as you like keep giving it more energy and more life, it becomes more like, yes, this is who I am. And I shouldn't be ashamed of it. And it's like whatever, man.
Yeah, whatever.
Exactly.
That's great. And so kind of tell me about your childhood and I guess how you were raised. Were you raised in an environment that really was against, any homosexuality? Was it a rigid environment or was it fairly open?
I would say my parents are great. They're wonderful people. I personally don't like them very much, but I do appreciate and respect them. Like they gave me a lot of things, and I can't like hate on them and whatnot. In terms of like expressiveness and whatnot, they were never like, oh, you're too much or anything. But I think there was. No, I think there definitely was like a point in my childhood. There's a picture somewhere. I don't know where it is, but there's like a ballerina kind of tutu that I'd wear around. Apparently, allegedly, I have horrible memories, so I don't actually remember a lot of things from my childhood. Which I don't know. It's like, did I repress that or back that? I don't know. But like, so allegedly I'd have it, and there's a picture, and I've seen the picture, so I know it does exist. But I'd wear that around the house occasionally, and I'd like fully go and visit with the limp wrists and everything at like a young 5-year-old-ish age.
Yeah.
And I think it mysteriously disappeared at some point, so I think that was like not like okay. And then I remember I wanted to do, for like a sport, I wanted to either do like gymnastics or like swimming, and like no sport is inherently gay. Like you don't use your genitals to do a sport. But apparently it was too like feminine to do gymnastics, so I had to do swimming. And I was like, oh, okay. My dad wanted me to do football, of course, but like I don't know. This isn't football material. I'm gonna get smacked and I'm gonna be on the ground. And I'm just like, nah. So it was all right for the most part. They weren't like. I think they knew. I mean, I feel like not most parents know, but I feel like parents, they have like the second insight.
An intuition.
Yeah. So I think they knew, and they were maybe waiting for me to tell them, or they were just like maybe not wanting it. I don't know.
Yeah. How did they take it? And I guess how did you tell them? Did you just one day say, "Hey, mom and dad," or?
many years down the line. I want to say it was probably like 3 years ago, my mother got me like, the parent classic trap, you get in the car ride somewhere, it's just the two of you, and you can't get away, and she just turns to me, she's like, so Dylan, are you gay? And it was just like, wow, okay, well, obviously you have information that's fueling the suspicion, there's no reason to lie about it. Because, well, okay, let me backtrack for a second. I very strongly am against the idea, I don't think it's like an official idea, but like straight privilege is a thing, but like straight privilege in the sense that like straight people don't have to tell their parents they're straight. So
right.
Why do I have to tell you you're gay? Like it doesn't matter at all. So that's why I wouldn't tell them at first. I wasn't ashamed of it, but it was just like, you don't need to know. It doesn't
affect anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like it's not none of your business. But she asked me, and I was like, okay, yeah, I am. And she's like, oh, okay, I thought so. And her reasoning was like, you never had any like girlfriends or anything, and you're like a really good looking guy. So like, it's like that was some horrible logic. Like, thanks, but like, what kind of logic is that, you know? And then she was like all right with it at the time, I thought. And then fast forward to November, like Thanksgiving last year, I think it was. I went down and I hadn't told my brother or my mother or my father at that point. It was just me and my mother's like little secret, which was also like a gross thing to tell. Like it's not like, I know it was like a dirty thing for some reason. Like, ooh, we won't tell your father. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, thanks. But came down. I went and had some relations with some fellow, which in Hollister, California, is kind of hard to do because it's like 15 miles away. 15, you know, it's like kind of small country, not country, but like pseudo country. So it's like you got to go somewhere to get there. So went and did some of that, came back home. Obviously, I had to lie to my parents on the way out. It was like, ooh, really high school. Oh, I'm just going to a party, whatever, whatever. And then so I got back home, and no one was awake, thank God. My brother was actually there. He like just come home from like the shift, but he like was in the driveway next to me, so I was just kind of staring at him. And he's like, well, what are you doing? Where'd you get home? And I was like, well, you know, whatever. And, you know, the brotherly interaction was like a lot easier because it was just like, oh, whatever, dude. Like, I like dick, whatever, you know. So then he was all right with it. And then at that point, it was like, okay, mom knows, Cody knows, or my brother, Cody, he knows. And then I was like, guess I'll tell my dad. And I went to tell my dad, and he was actually really, really good about it. He was just like, I kind of like thought you were, but I wasn't gonna like press you about it. And he said like, I'm just kind of hurt. But he was like, I'm just kind of hurt you didn't tell me. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I guess I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But so that was nice. But then, you know, then of course, not all nice things last. But so I'm in the car ride. We're going back to drop me off at the airport. Mom in the front, brother in like passenger. I don't know. I've got to paint the scene. I'm in the back, and you know, I don't know how it gets brought up, but my brother and I were joking about the fact that I was like having some lewd activities the other night. My mom didn't know, and she's like, "What are y'all laughing about?" And you know, I probably looking back on it shouldn't have like, not shouldn't have, but I didn't convey it to her in like the most eloquent way. But I was just kind of like, yeah, I went and had sex with somebody last night, and she was just like, and then it just turned into like a really awful experience of unveiling like her internalized homophobia that like she dealt with. Like both the parents grew up South and like religious and whatnot. So not to say that obviously like you grow up there, it's not that you have to have these beliefs, but like they carried it with them and whatnot. They went to church a lot, and I don't know, like it started out as, what did it start with? Sorry.
Was it telling you like how wrong it was, or the dangers of it?
Yeah, kind of. At first it was like, why are you doing that? And then it like kind of turned into some slut shaming, which was like, whatever, like I'm 25, well 24 at the time, was like I'm gonna have sex. Like this is the time in my life where like, you know, this is the best, not best time, but like, okay, so like, yeah. So then it was like, okay, whatever, that's fine. And then it turned into like, oh, well, like, how do you know that, like, you're not even into girls? Have you ever been with one? It was just like, obviously, first rebuke, how do you know you're into men? Like, you never tried this. So, like, you know, none of this makes sense. And it kept going like that for, like, 20, 30 minutes. And, like, it kind of got to the point where, like, I just didn't want to do this anymore. Like, it was very exhausting. And so I told her, you know, I asked her, like, can we stop having this conversation? Because it's not, like, it's just not productive, it's not good. And then she was like, no. And so she kept going into it. And then so I had to just put on the headphones and then turn out and just look out the window. And even my brother, at least, eventually he was like, can you like stop? And so like, bless up.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then after that, I just kind of pulled back away from, at least from her specifically. And then I feel bad because my brother and my father don't deserve it, but you know.
Sure. So you don't interact with them that much?
As little as possible, yeah.
As little as possible.
Yeah.
Okay. When was that? That was a year ago?
Last Thanksgiving.
And has she ever made any attempt to, you know, kind of come around or apologize, or is there?
I think. Well, I don't think she definitely knows she hurt me. I definitely told her straight up, and I think she like attempted a half-assed apology. It was just kind of like, I'm sorry you felt that way. Don't start an apology with, I'm sorry you felt that way.
That is not an apology.
Like, right? Like, what the fuck is that? So it became apparent to me it was like more about her being right and more about her being that. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'm not gonna like, thanks, but obviously I'm not actually like accepting it. Like, I'll accept it superficially because it makes the political process of dealing with family life easier, but. like an actual like sincere attempt, I haven't really felt it.
So you were out for years before out to your parents. So was it just? I know you mentioned like why talk about it if it doesn't really matter. Was that the main reason, or was there some other deep? Was this an issue that you were afraid of your mother reacting this exact way?
I think like probably subconsciously there's always like you hear a lot of terrible stories and you see a lot of terrible stories. It's like I don't want to believe it's gonna happen to me, but you never really know. So I think that was a big fear of it. But I do think a large part of it was just like you don't need to know.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect you.
Yeah. How did you go about telling your friends? Was it when it came out just in conversation, like, hey, have you seen any girls lately? Or was it just, that guy's cute?
I think the first friend, like the OG friend from hometown, we were hanging out. And I don't really know, like it just kind of was just like I felt like I had to tell him, mostly because I know many people in high school had asked if I was, and he would always like defend me. Not that you need to be offended, but he thought that I was. So he'd be like, "Why are you talking shit? He's straight. Like whatever, stop talking shit." So like he was always like saying that, and so I was like, "Oh, like thanks for like standing up for me, but actually, you know, da 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 da." And he was just like, "Man, you made me lie to people," and I was like, oh, what a good. It was such a nice response. Like,
yeah, that's the homie you keep.
Right. And then after him, it became a lot easier because then it was just like more reinforcing the idea of it's nothing, like it's whatever. It's just how I am.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. That's a good story.
Thank you.
Yeah. I guess if anyone was listening that's maybe a few years behind you, but in your shoes, maybe they haven't told their parents yet. Maybe they have a similar childhood to you, but they are struggling with their identity. What would you kind of say to them if they were listening?
Very cliche, but it definitely does get better. It definitely does get easier with time, especially if you can if you have the ability to just get away from. Well, not. I mean, obviously that sounds way easier said than done, but like I don't know. It definitely gets easier because you become more comfortable with yourself and become more aware of like what you're willing to stand for and what you're willing to like. I don't know. Like I don't know. I would say you just gotta keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
People out there exist that are like you and love you and are into you, and the world is much bigger than, especially for small town folk. Like it's much better.
Small town. I like that you mentioned that. Yeah, tell me a little bit more about just the small townness and the small town, just how scary it can be living in a small town and then having that secret of, oh, I'm gay. Like
everybody knows everybody, and then if somebody's not into it, you better believe they're gonna know. And if like, I was never personally like courageous enough or strong enough. People that do come out in high school and are like actually out in high school, that is really impressive to me. Like I just wasn't able to. Like I don't know. That's
me
hard.
neither.
Yeah, that's hard stuff. So like, kudos to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was just like you can't tell people because then everybody knows. And then in terms of like trying to find like partners and whatnot, whether for like lewd or romantic and whatnot, God, it's just like this 50-year-old, whatever, 20 miles away, or there's like 18-year-old twink fresh out of high school. And it's like, yikes, I don't want any of these options, and there's a very limited selection. I feel like the views out in the countryside and small towns are just very narrow, because you're not exposed to a lot of things. So then it's just the people are generally kind of toxic. So like, I don't know, it's not where it's at. When you come to a more populated area, it's like, wow, there's, not to like make people sound like options and selections, but like there's variety. There's like selections.
There's variety.
Like, wow, more people out here exist like me, and it's not just me and Joe Schmo in my town.
Right.
The world opens up.
Yeah. Definitely got to be harder, coming out or experiencing being gay in a small town than, not to, disavow anyone else's experiences, but definitely in a small town it's got to be a little bit different.
I would agree.
That's interesting about your parents, though, because they're still in the small town, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that they get this reputation now as being like the parents of a gay person? Is that something you've thought about? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
I've never crossed my mind.
Okay.
That's an interesting one, though. Oh.
maybe that's why your mom, reacts a certain way, because she might feel this pressure that. I don't know.
See, now I sound self-centered and whatnot, not thinking about her.
No,
But,
yeah.
that is like a very valid, that's like a valid point. Like, I never really thought about the repercussions that shouldn't exist that it might have on them.
They shouldn't exist. That's, yeah. Unfortunately, they do exist, but.
That's a good one. I don't know.
Just something that crossed my mind that yeah.
I should ask her, actually. I'm curious to know.
Yeah, might help amend get back on track.
True.
Validate her feelings and whatnot. Just my opinion.
I think that's like a good, like, again, like I looked at it slowly, not slowly, but I definitely looked at it more just like, this is how I feel about it. Like, like, saw how she did it, but, I didn't really, it's hard to take all the perspectives into account, so that's a good.
It is, especially when we are kind of labeled as being in the wrong, for simply existing.
It's hard not to be defensive.
Yeah.
When the world doesn't want you. The world does want you, everybody. The world is fucking stay. Keep doing it.
Love it. Well, Dylan, thank you for being on the show. You've been a great guest, and so.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, do you have any socials that you would want to drop? Your Instagram or anything else? Up to you.
Yeah, check me out there at Dill, DIL _Dozer, DOZER. There's also another underscore at the other one, depending on if it's Instagram or Twitter or not. I don't remember which one's which. But if you actually care to do that, I'm out here posting mostly subpar humorous content, in my opinion, humorous.
There we go. The best kind of humor. Thank you all for tuning into the show. As always, you can find us at thealphabetmafia.com. You can check out our website. You can email us at podcast@thealphabetmafia.com if you are interested in being a guest on the podcast, or if you want to just share your story. We are working on a blog format where in our blog we will be able to include stories for people who aren't local in California. And as always, if anyone is struggling out there, you can please email us. Or if it's super serious and you need immediate help, please contact the Trevor Project. You can go to thetrevorproject.org, and on their website they will be able to provide immediate assistance if you are in danger. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you beautiful people next time.